and welcome back to our museum show and tell with Genevieve at Huronia Museum and Jan and myself at the Penetanguishene Centennial Museum. Unfortunately, Nahani couldn't make it today, so I am your host for this evening's or today's performance. So last week, Huronia Museum did challenge us to find an artifact that you might not use anymore, that used to be used in the past, but now we found something a little bit better to use other than this artifact. So Genevieve, do you want to show us what you have?
Sure, I have two things actually that follow the same theme, and they are glazes on historic ceramics. So a glaze was added to ceramic just to seal it shut and also to give the object a bit of stability or hardness, creates nice hard surface. And it's a glass-like, usually a glass-like substance that will cover the artifact. And the first one is a piece of earthenware, and it has been glazed with lead. And lead was historically used for thousands of years, honestly, to glaze earthenwares. And earthenwares are usually kind of softer clays. They can be fired at a lower temperature. And I know from archaeological excavations that I used to do that in order to determine if something is an earthenware, what you normally do is the tongue test. So you give it a lick, and if it sticks to your tongue, then it's an earthenware. So this is an earthenware from the 1850s, and it has a lead glaze. And lead was normally applied, well, it was applied in two different ways. You could either apply it as a liquid, in which case it was mixed, let me see, with silica, alumina, and lead oxide, or it could be dusted on. And those are both really, really obviously prolonged exposure. It's detrimental to your health. So you can imagine that a lot of the potters were ended up very ill. I'm not sure how much exposure is required. And the second one is, this is a utilitarian stoneware, and it has a salt glaze. And salt glazing is not often done. Occasionally, you'll still see it on sewer pipes, but salt glazing was done in a little different way from the lead glazing. While the disc or the ceramic object was being fired, they would actually toss the salt into the kiln, and the salt vaporizes, sending fumes throughout the kiln, and it combines with the silica that's in the clay itself. It binds to it, and it creates a sodium silicate glaze on the pot. And you can normally tell that any earthenware, or sorry, a stoneware that's been fired with salt normally has a sort of an orange peel, kind of a bumpy. It's not entirely smooth. And what's interesting about this pot here, this is obviously hand potted. It's been dipped. That brown that you see, the dark browny black color, is actually an iron oxide slip. So it's just a liquefied clay that's got a lot of iron oxide in it. And you can see on the bottom of the pot, I've got these three bare spots there. 4 bare spots, and then on the other side, there's the opposite side, there's another one, and that's from where the potter or the dipper held the pot. You can see it's got a slightly larger hand than I did, held the pot and dipped it, and then when he was finished, he wiped his fingers on the underside of the pot. You can see there's some brown slip on the underside there. So those are two techniques that are no longer used in glazing ceramic, and today we generally use a silica-based glaze. It's not dangerous at all to glaze our pottery, so we're not being poisoned.
So is your second example, the salt glazing, is that safe?
It is safe, actually. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it is safe.
okay.
There's nothing harmless, but safe for human consumption. But apparently, there were concerns about the environmental impact of the process, and so it was phased out
Okay.
in Europe. And that one's only been in use probably since the 1400s. It started in Germany, and then it spread to England, and then it was transported over, came over with colonists into North America.
So what time period are those two artifacts you have there, would you say?
This, I know it, this one, based on the pattern, I'd say it was about 1850s. This is Flow Blue. This one is more difficult to date. Utilitarian stonewares were used for quite a long time, although I would say it dates maybe to about before 1910. By the late 1900s, you see more glassware being used for storage rather than pots like this. Although obviously people didn't discard all their stoneware pots just to be fashionable. They continued to use them. And I know even my Oma, she used a larger pot than this to make sauerkraut before the family immigrated in 1953. So they're continued to be used even today, I bet.
Neat. I had no idea that there was glaze with lead.
Yeah. Well, I remember like when I was a small child, there was still lead-based house paints that we were all using.
Yep.
And lead-based, like my sister's, like the crib, she was born in 61, and it was lead-based paint. And then there became this awareness, and oh my gosh, the children are all chewing on the rails of their cribs, and it's lead-based. Yeah, so that was, doesn't seem like that long ago that we were still using it then.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it had been understood. At least, yeah, the knowledge wasn't widespread.
All right, Jan, so what artifact do you have for us today?
Well, it's a little bigger, so I'm going to have to do like a scan across the screen. So this is, let me get this here. It's a child's leg brace. And you can see the foot there.
Yeah.
Right? So this is actually a polio brace for a child.
Oh.
So although polio has been around since the early Egyptian times, it was the late 19th century and the first half of the 20th century that polio hit Canada the hardest of anywhere else. And it was nicknamed the crippler. And so these poor little children. So it's a virus that attacks the nervous system, causing muscle weakness and paralysis. And at its worst, it will attack the muscles that assist the lungs. And this is why so many people ended up in the iron lungs. So this is, I have a picture here. This is one of Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, had 27 of these machines. This is from a picture from that hospital. And you can see there's a person in there. And there's another version of a lung that an adult is using in this picture.
Ooh.
And in this picture, of course, the nurse is holding a newspaper article because, wow, like the vaccine has worked, right? Yeah. And then we have this little one wearing just about the very same brace that we have here, and she's learning to walk again. So ironically, the epidemic increased in numbers with the improvement of sanitary conditions. You think that we improve our sanitary conditions, that, you know, this is going to be very helpful. But what happened was, I guess, children who had normally built natural immunities, because we were making everything so sanitary, they weren't building them anymore. And so I guess that's why, like, even a lot of parents nowadays say, send your kids out in the dirt to play because it's going to build their immunities. Especially vulnerable were young families just post-war in the baby boom, middle-class families. And the worst wave for Ontario was in 1929 and 1930. Two well-known Canadian musicians were stricken by it. One is Neil Young at the age of 5. And Joni Mitchell at the age of 9. Yes. So a vaccine was created in 1949, and by the 1990s, it had been eradicated from North America. So we can have one more little look at this because we don't need this anymore because we've eradicated it, right? And that's what we were looking for, something we didn't need anymore. But think of the poor kids, like this is a metal foot, you know. Yeah. And there was a little pad that went over their kneecap here, and it all buckles in. So there we are. That's our artifact that we've improved greatly because we don't need it anymore.
Because of vaccines.
Yes, that's right. They actually work.
That's a very creative way to come up with the artifact.
Yes.
All right, so next week we're back again, and we thought because, and the viewers might not know this, but Nahani is actually leaving the Huronia Museum, and so next week is actually going to be her last week, and so we thought it'd be fun if we could find an artifact that you'd think Nahani would really like. You know, I think over the last year doing these shows, we kind of learned some things about Nahani. And so I'm sure Genevieve will have no problem maybe finding something that's her favorite artifact in the collection. And we'll try to come up with something that we think that she would really enjoy for her last show. So what do you think about that theme?
That's a fantastic idea.
And it's good she's not here, right? So she can't say no.
She doesn't. Right. She won't even know that we're dedicating it to her.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so I'll see everybody next week, okay?
Okay. Bye.